Alrighty, very good morning to you once again. This is the Smooth Breakfast on Smooth 98.1, your love music, love life station. It's 34 minutes past 7 a.m. It's a feel good Friday. It's the 14th day of March 2025. We're more or less at the middle of the month already. Time just keeps flying by, and I hope we're making the best of it each and every single day. My name is Ayokunmi, and we are at the point where we get to take a look at the newspapers, the headlines, the stories. We get analysis, we get your thoughts, we get your perspectives, your opinions. You are most welcome to Freshly Pressed for the final time this week. Looking forward to making it an absolutely smashing one, as we always do. And you get to be a part of it. So all you need to do is to send your messages in to us on WhatsApp or join us on YouTube. Now, the WhatsApp number is 0809 444 0981 0809 444 0981. That is the WhatsApp number. We're also streaming on YouTube, like I mentioned, at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Smooth 981 FM Lagos. And just drop your comments in the chat box. I'll be taking them along with the WhatsApp messages as we go on the show. Joining me on a Friday, as they usually do, it's a full house. Ibi Bozimo and, of course, Joseph Obari are in. Good morning to you, gentlemen. Great to have you in.
As usual.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Joseph. Good morning to all the wonderful listeners out there.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Ayo. Good to see you back here. And then all the listeners, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Joseph. Ibi, I know that you are not in Port Harcourt at the moment, but before you left town, what was the weather looking like? And I don't mean from a meteorological point of view.
My expertise might be closer to the meteorological than to the political. But that said, it's calm. I mean, you could say there is an undercurrent, but on the surface, everything appears calm for now.
Well, there's a particular story that has to do with River State. I mean, we've done updates back to back to back on the show this entire week, and another one is going to be coming up. But before we get to that particular one, we're going to start with matters that have to do with VAT. And Joseph, I want to bring this one to your doorstep. And we're taking this from The Guardian here. Now, the House of Representatives on Thursday approved significant amendments to the four tax reform bills sent to the National Assembly in October by President Bola Tinubu. Now, the bills are the Nigeria Tax Bill, Nigeria Tax Administration Bill, Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Bill, and Joint Revenue Board Establishment Bill as well. That's just a recap of what we are talking about from way back in October, just to catch us up to speed. And some of the amendments that were made to the proposed legislation include a bill for an act to provide for the assessment, collection, and accounting for revenue accruing to the Federation, federal, states, and local governments, prescribing the powers and functions of tax authorities, and so on and so forth. It's lengthy, and we've gone through the stories, but just make a bit of sense of it for us, Joseph. I mean, we've had this back and forth since, but here we've made some headway.
The significant thing is that there were contentions. People felt that as stakeholders, they were not taken along in the proposed amendment to the FRIS Act and all that. So, which more or less has been stretched into these four legislations. So, the issues that arose from them principally was about VAT and so on. And so the House is now, after the consultations or stakeholder consultations that they did, here public hearings and all that, it's more or less like taking in the feedback they've gotten. And most significantly, they have decided to take the option of the Governors Forum, which suggested that VAT distribution should be on the basis of 10% to the VAT to go to that the VAT distribution of revenue should be principally based on the federal government having to have 10%, right?
Right.
And then 55%
to the state government
and the FCC, and then 35 to the local
local
government.
governments.
And then distribution of VAT should be on the basis of, I think I'm getting it, I'm getting it mixed up. Revenue revenue from the federation account, right? Is they agree to the formula of let me get my facts right, please. Sorry.
The distribution actually is correct. I mean, 10% to the government, 55% to the states,
Oh, right.
the FCT, 35% to the local governments as well.
I think VAT they amended the VAT element, which was supposed to be like 30% by population, but now they reduced it to 10% and 30% to
Consumption.
Consumption. Yes. So
Yes.
consumption, despite wherever that the filing is done, is irrelevant, but the consumption, where the consumption was made, will get 30%. And then, of course, equality, everybody gets 50%.
50%.
I think that's the most significant thing about what was the major issue of contention, and most governors, particularly in the North, were kicking again. I'm sorry that I got my facts mixed up. Initial was, or not sure of what I was saying initially. And then also there was this decision on inheritance on tax income. I find that very, very offensive, because I think our elites always consider their own interest first. Inheritance, the average Nigerian may not have an inheritance, but the elite, members of House of Reps, senators, and so on, are likely to have inheritance in their families. And I don't see why we cannot tax inheritance income. Inherited income should be taxed, and every part of the world, there is tax on inheritance. But we have conveniently removed that because it favors some persons. And it's usually the elite of the society that get to have inheritance. I don't think the average Nigerian man has money saved away in this kind of economy that he wants to bequeath to his children. But members of House of Reps, senators, government officials, and so on, and big business people are likely to leave a legacy of funds, of inheritance to their family.
Right.
You know, so we see these things happening again and again, where we people pander to their own interest and not the general interest of the country. Then VAT was left at 7.5% instead of the increase that was incremental suggestion, which was in the act to raise it to up to 15% if by 2030. They capped it at 7.5, which to me is not a very wise thing to do, because VAT is actually supposed to be on luxury items and consumption of the rich and those who can spend money. So we should be able to target, if we are saying we want to increase our tax basket, this is where we should make the money from, instead of capping it at 7. But again, like I said, it is the interest of these people that you don't have to pay tax on your luxury, and so they cap it at 7.5. So the average Nigerian, we seem as if they've done us a favor. Oh, they consider that we are suffering and so on. But the truth simply is that much of what is vatable is what is luxury. It's what is. Yes, and that's what happens everywhere. If you want to enjoy luxury, you pay for it. Spend money on it, and it's tax that you should pay to the people. It can be used to solve the public needs. But in Nigeria, it's the reverse that we are doing. You know. So another amendment they did was, initially they were going to I think they have now said that other agencies can share from the development fund. TED fund was supposed to be the sole beneficiary of that income, but now we have other agencies of government also are benefiting.
Correct. NIDA and Nastenia as well will continue to receive funding.
Yeah. I don't know whether there is any other. Okay, there is a restriction on the powers of the governor, president, and the governors to give waivers, tax incentives to gov organizations. Where I think this is a wise thing because it should be curtailed if it's being done in honesty. It's not that it's not that legislators also want to be a share of those who are negotiating this thing at the end of the day. So the idea is that there should be some check on what the legislator, the executive is doing in terms of dispensing this favor in quote for investors. So the National Assembly wants to be part of it so that they can also check, at least ostensibly check that power. I think these are the significant changes. Apologies for the mix-up earlier.
It tends to happen, when you have so many numbers, it tends to happen to me as well. You put this number here, put that number there. But hey, we got to the promised land at the end of the day. All right, AB, let's head into the vanguard. There's a story here talking about the Electoral Act and the Senate beginning moves to make amends to it that will provide opportunities for Nigerians on essential duties to perform their franchise rights of voting early at elections. It's a bill for an act to amend the Electoral Act number 13, 2022, to provide early voting at elections, including criteria for eligibility, procedure, and other related matters. Not a bad idea, but should it only be restricted to essential workers, AB?
That's the first part of it that I feel is not thinking big enough. Yes, you don't want all those, like you find policemen who are deployed at certain time. First of all, we have to take a step back. How come elections in Nigeria involve the deployment of police, soldiers, the fire service? Come on. It's supposed to be an election. It's not supposed to be like a civil war inside your country. So that's, first of all, one of the core issues. But so far, that's what we do. And so you find many of those essential workers are not where they originally registered. So you could have two ways to look at it. Make it possible, as I've always said.
Are you there, AB?
The lawyers, to my best of my knowledge, started it. Who is a lawyer can actually vote during their by-elections from any part of the planet Earth, and maybe even the moon. I don't know if there's internet there. Other professional bodies have also followed. I know we as architects have done the same thing, and we've been successful. So there should be a possibility, at least, of electronic voting. Then you talk about only essential workers. I guess all of us are essential in one way or the other. So strictly speaking, like you asked, why limit it only to the supposed essential workers? Everybody should have the opportunity or option of voting. But for me, the most important thing to change is the farce of a process where you have to shut down a nation for 2 successive weekends just to vote for people who, frankly, in my lifetime experience, have not benefited the rest of us much in any way. Why do we have to have elections over 2? How come we cannot elect people on one day? What is this mystery or this magic that needs us to shut down Nigeria for maybe 6 a.m. to 4 p.m., two weekends in a row? It's preposterous. So if you really want to reform the thing, start with that. Make all elections happen on one day, count them. And if you want to go further, ensure that the votes are electronically tallied. And I think at that point, you will have a much more believable electoral process. Because right now, in my view, there are simply too many holes that people can exploit to still do mischief. Because ostensibly, why they said they want to do this is that every Nigerian ought to have the right to vote. I agree. But these rights to vote, I think, sometimes are being diluted by some of the shenanigans that some of the politicians and political parties get up to. Great idea, but not thinking big enough. Lack of ambition, lack of capacity, in my view, and frankly, typical of many of our National Assembly, initiatives.
Every Nigerian should should be able to exercise their rights to vote. But even under the current system, is that actually obtainable? Those are questions that you need to ask before you begin to aspire to some very, very lofty aspirations. All right, let's keep things moving and let's get your messages in this morning on 080944400981. That is the WhatsApp number. Ajayi Oloniluwa says there's actually need for further amendments to our electoral act, but the most important one should be for any candidate to be declared winner must secure a simple majority of all votes cast in the election. All right, thank you for sharing your thoughts there, Ajayi. Joseph, let's head into River State. Like I mentioned, we're going to bring another update to the saga going on there. This one coming out of the Punch. And it says the River State House of Assembly has asked the Department of State Services, aka the DSS, to investigate the chief judge of the state for alleged age falsification. Now, this was the subject of plenary on Thursday at the Assembly, following the presentation of some documents to the Assembly by the leader of the House, Honorable Major Jack. Now, afterwards, Deputy Speaker, Honorable Dubemal, raised an allegation against the chief judge of the state, Simeon Amadi. Well, this is another chapter or another episode in the ongoing series in River State. And it's interesting talking about the chief judge of the state under the spotlight because we know how lopsided things are, in the House of Representatives, and it seems maybe that the chief judge was the only one who probably could bring a level of sanity in terms of balancing things out. But now he's under the microscope. Maybe this is part of the ongoing saga. Okay, let's get him for something, and then we can keep things moving. Bearing in mind the talk of impeachment that have come up recently.
Yeah. So let's put things in perspective as far as River State is concerned. We have seen when this crisis started, the president called both parties to a meeting and practically handed a blueprint to them on how the peace should be sustained. It's instructive to note that at that time, all the cases instituted by Fubara against the other side, the 27 lawmakers in court, he withdrew them. He withdrew every one of them. These 27 refused to withdraw theirs, and that was what one of them culminated in the decision of the Supreme Court that now seems to put the governor in a shackle. That's how lopsided this whole development has been. Now, the president met with Niger Delta elders yesterday and gave them an instruction to go and tell Fubara to depart of peace. But he never said sent any message to the other side, which has sustained belligerence ever since this whole matter started. They have been on a war path, and they have an agenda, and everything that has been done so far is more or less targeted at the governor. Even the decision of the Supreme Court, which as a lawyer I'm embarrassed over, is targeted at shackling the governor of that state. Nobody cares what River State goes through. As the people of River State, with losses they suffer, nobody is caring about that. So we see a situation where this governor is steadily being pushed to the wall. He's been fighting for survival, more or less. And this time around, after the Supreme Court has put him in that legal quagmire, he is making the overture to reach out to these people. The other day, they locked him out from where these legislators were meeting. He sent a message. He said, according to the report, he said sent messages to them, sent by text message. That's what official communication. They pretended they never received any message from him that he was coming to present the budget they demanded he must present. Now, because they feel the chief judge is not likely to play ball with them, they have moving against him with the aim of getting him out of office, so that the governor will be forced to now present somebody for them to approve. Because of course, if you have a new chief judge, of course you must go to the House of Assembly for clearance and for him to accept it. So that becomes another issue. They will keep rejecting or frustrate the governor and so on. So at the end of the day, these legislators are not interested in serving their people, the people who elected them in the office. Their defection, the law on defection is very clear, which is the most embarrassing aspect of the judgment of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said they didn't recognize that they allegedly learned that, but they were taking other facts that were not before them and deciding on. In law, the court does not discuss or treat a matter that is not before it.
Mm.
But in this case, they took the fact that, the governor demolished a building, he has been acting unlawfully and all that. But they discountenance the fact that these legislators defected. They say it's allegedly. So where do we stand in all of this?
These are the questions.
People are procuring judgments from courts and using it to frustrate the citizens, because at the end of the day, the governor has repeatedly said that can never be a factor. No sacrifice is too much for him. So why is the other party not also towing the path of peace? And I find it very, very offensive when the president begins to take side in matters like this that have potential of damaging our democracy.
All right.
From the first meeting he had with the people, it was obvious his bias. And in his comments and reactions ever since then, even yesterday, it's obvious where his bias is. And it's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunate.
All right, AB, just throw in a word or two here.
Just a word. You said it. The whole week there's been talk of stories out of River State. What is so unfortunate, first of all, is that never in a single one of those stories has the cause of the ordinary Rivers citizen been the topic. Secondly, Rivers is a state that has two ports. It has manufacturing of fertilizer. It has beaches. It has vibrant people. It has awesome land. It has everything. It is a net contributor to Nigeria's GDP. It is very, very problematic that rather than us emphasizing and celebrating those potential contributions, we are finding people, I would say with malevolent intent, who are making that state teeter on the brink. It is a dangerous place we're in, and people are better step back. At the end of the day, people must ask themselves, who benefits from this? Are Rivers people benefiting, or are outsiders having a laugh?
These are the questions, and this is something we definitely need to keep our eye on very, very firmly. But before then, let's take the story out of the Vanguard. Let's just get through it as soon as we can, because the time absolutely flying by as it always does. And the Lagos State government has vowed to enforce a strict no truck policy across the state, following a devastating gas truck explosion that occurred under the Otedola Bridge on Tuesday night. Very unfortunate incident there. Now, Commissioner for Transportation, Honorable Oluwaseun Oshiyemi, stated this yesterday after he led a team from the ministry to the accident scene to assess the situation. And now he noted here that the truck had violated the state law by ignoring a no truck allowed sign on the road, stressing that the Ministry of Transportation would enforce the policy to prevent similar accidents. We've had one too many of these accidents in Lagos, all around the country, and we hear talk of, we will enforce. This has gone beyond a case of we will enforce. This has to be a national security matter, because these incidents, whether it's gas trucks, whether it's petrol trucks, they have become one too many, and it's led to loss of lives, loss of property. We can't keep doing this and saying, we will enforce, we will enforce. This should be a national security matter.
100% agree with you. And very quickly, there was a part of the story that touched me in the wrong way. They said, if you notice, the road underneath that place is undulating. So you know that there's an undulating road and you left it like that. That's on one side. Two, that the truck went where it's not supposed to go. So I agree, the trucker did the wrong thing to go there. What were the things to prevent it? I know there's some places you cannot enter because there's this big bar across the top. Having a sign, and in many cases in Lagos, those signs are twisted slightly so that if you violate, somebody can jump out and spook you and tell you did something wrong. I don't know whether that's the case, but there should be firm things that make it impossible for such a truck to go in the wrong place. At the end of the day, I'll say there are lots of policies. There's going to be a structural integrity test of the bridge where some cracks are noticed. There are lots of policies that are going to be done now after the fact. But remember, some people have died, others are terribly injured. There is devastation in the whole area. Material has been lost. And so this is an example of an avoidable, unfortunate incident. And you're right, it's not enough to talk about what we shall do. Let us start reporting on what we have done in terms of preventive measures, because safety is our first priority in every single industry. It doesn't matter. Safety first, because unless people are safe, they cannot carry out any other function. So I mourn those who lost their lives. I mourn those who must be in hospital right now. I hope they're getting the right health care with all the doctors having taken off. I wonder, but the point is reactive to check after they happen.
All right, thank you for that, AB. Let me take messages. Let me run through the messages that are lined up here really quickly before we call it a morning on the show. Oluwaseyi says the chief judge of Rivers State is a supporter of Governor Fubara. The Wike boys know they can't impeach him without the chief judge, so they are being proactive. They need to take out the chief judge in order to achieve their end game of impeaching Governor Fubara. That's all that there is to it. Okay, let me see who else is talking to us here. Tali says, while I do not know whether the chief judge's case is real or not, but there's a thing called government age. I don't know why people do it. I've seen parents who are peers, so not older generations, or they adjust their kids' date of birth when getting admission to nursery and primary school, just because the school may have an entry cutoff tied to the birth mortality. I hear you on this one. And if you know what goes on in the civil service, I've heard stories, and I've heard stories, even stories of some people who are supposed to have been born on the same day, but their ages tend to be different. Puza says, right from the onset of River State crisis, Mr. President has taken sides with Wike's group against Governor Fubara. That's why the crisis is not settled up until now. Probably has a hidden agenda there. May God help the people of Rivers State. Rexy from Surulere says, Joseph has taken sides in the Rivers matter and is so emotional about the Supreme Court judgments. Really, no party in that matter are saints. Stop trying to demonize one for the other. They all started from the same political family. But is that the issue on the ground? Whether or not they started from the same political family, is that actually the issue on the ground when you think about it? You're muted, Joseph.
Even say, oh, well, who know what Fubara agreed with Wike? Why wouldn't you implement it and follow it? Which is what I think is the president's thinking. Do what you're supposed to do. Obey. It's a mafia law. Just do what you're supposed to do. Obey the boss. If you you'll be flogged. That's it.
But what Tunde Alao says, for the River State saga, hold President Tinubu and Wike accountable for the troubles in that state. We play politics with everything rather than pure governance. It's a shame. Shola says it's clear that the minister is acting on behalf of the president and it's towards the 2027 elections. Are you sure about that, Shola? Everyone in Rivers and stakeholders are behind Fubara, yet the president's minister is causing troubles. And Barrister Danukuda says the shenanigans playing out in Rivers State is all about 2027. Okay. Second person who is making mention of that. I don't know. It's just your thoughts I'm taking on the show this morning. All right. We need to call it a day at this point in time. Thank you so much, Joseph. And of course, AB, for joining me on a Friday morning. Absolute pleasure having you.
My pleasure always. It'd be nice to see you again.
Thank you so much, Ayo. Thank you to all the listeners. Joseph, have a wonderful weekend ahead, along with all of the fabulous listeners out there.
For your candy, for your out.
We'll talk about that one in camera. Anyways,
Happy
thank
weekend,
you.
everybody. Simply safe.
Alrighty. Thank you so much for all the messages and keeping in tune to the Smooth Breakfast. As always, we don't take it for granted. And of course, you shouldn't go anywhere. 8:15. It's all about great sporting action in the locker room.
Wow. Guys.
Well done.